Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, and welcome back to Keeping an Eye on the Geopolitical Ball. I'm Jamie Shea, Senior Fellow with Friends of Europe here in Brussels. Just before our summer break last July, I said that although we were hoping to take a few weeks off, geopolitics certainly wouldn't. And with the events in Lebanon, in the Eastern Mediterranean, in Libya or Mali, we've been served richly in that department. But the one issue which has probably occupied Western diplomats most over the summer has been the events in Belarus in the wake of the elections on August the 9th, which gave, at least on the surface, President Lukashenko an unprecedented sixth term in office. We've had dodgy elections in Belarus before, and we've had protests, but this time round, things seem to be on a much greater scale, with the opposition pledging in its major Sunday rallies that it's not going to give up. Who's going to win the standoff between President Lukashenko and the opposition? Difficult to say. Lukashenko is clearly a person steeped in all of the techniques of repression, from curbing the independent media, exiling his opponents to Lithuania or Poland, selectively arresting and then releasing opponents, and using force when he thinks he can get away with it. But the opposition also, this time, is better organized. It set up a coordinating committee. It's managed to get into the factories and high-tech sector on which the Belarusian economy depends. And certainly Lukashenko will be much more worried about strikes from his workers, where he traditionally relies for support, than from liberal dissidents in the cities. And the opposition has got much more international support, and the international community this time around seems more determined also to make a stand and put pressure on Lukashenko to engage in a round table with the opposition. So what can the EU and NATO do given the current internal situation in Belarus? Well, the first thing is to do no harm. We have in our mind the precedents of Ukraine in 2014 or Georgia in 2008, when colour revolutions were highly encouraged by the West at the time, but with also promises, maybe premature, of NATO membership and later EU membership, which only antagonized Russia and persuaded it to intervene. So first thing round, make it clear that we are not trying to make Belarus into another Ukraine and Georgia. This is not the time to talk about NATO or EU membership or to challenge the Union Treaty and the customs agreement between Belarus and Russia, while making it clear to President Putin that if we're not going to interfere, he should not do so either. Second, limited objectives. Let's have a consistent set of objectives that make it clear what we are advocating and what we're not, and which are mainly connected with the situation of the Belarusian people. An investigation into the elections, a rerunning of the elections, a dialogue maybe facilitated by the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe between Lukashenko and the consultative committee of the opposition, with a gradual transfer of power. It doesn't mean that Lukashenko has to go immediately, but he could announce a date to stand down. He could appoint a prime minister from the opposition and some kind of power sharing transition arrangement, which would ensure stability in the meantime. The next thing is to be very firm with Lukashenko's current narrative of blaming everything on the West, Poland trying to seize back territory from Belarus, or NATO causing trouble, according to him, by deploying its forces on Western borders. This is clearly nonsense, and the Secretary General of NATO has been most vocal in denouncing all of that propaganda. Everybody should be willing and ready to do the same. Next, targeted sanctions, which the EU is currently preparing to target those individuals, but those individuals alone who are responsible for the repression and the fraudulent elections, with a escalatory scale of sanctions being prepared if Lukashenko is not prepared to engage the opposition and respect human rights, but also a package of economic incentives and agreements in the trade area if Lukashenko does decide to play ball, and which would give him a carrot to gradually liberalize, because with COVID-19 and with the worsening economic situation, he's going to badly need those Western markets to keep Belarus stable. Finally, this is a good opportunity for the EU in its new geopolitical role, not just to deal with the new crisis in its region, but to show this time round, after 2008 and 2014, that it's able more deftly to handle this situation, balancing its own interests vis-a-vis those of Russia, but which preserved the space for political pluralism in Belarus, just like the EU needs to do the same when it comes to those other states in between, like Moldova or Azerbaijan, which have many of the same characteristics. Also, to work with the United States, which this time round actually is willing to adopt largely the same stance as the EU, and therefore to get transatlantic security cooperation working again on an issue which concerns us all. Thank you very much for watching and listening today. I look forward to re-engaging again with you this time next week. Bye for now.